Recipes from the Heart was produced by the American Heart Association and Riverside Brookfield High School, with additional support from Jewel-Osco, IKEA, and Home Depot.
Well, hello, and welcome to our show. Today we're going to be talking about cooking on a budget. Today we have our guest today is Greg Colombe, and he's going to help us cook with a budget. Our recipes we're going to be doing today are a green bean oregano, and we're also going to do a chicken casserole. And we're going to hopefully give you a lot of tips on how to make our food dollar last a little bit longer. Okay, so first we have a cooktop. We're heating it up, and you got your nice pan. We have some water.
This will probably sizzle because the pan's heated up. Whoa, there we go.
Very nice. We'll add some celery, chopped up celery. Some green pepper.
Green pepper, boy, this is sizzling. I think I'll turn it down a little.
It sounds.
Let me move it over here for a second. Opa!
Want somebody to cool it down a little bit?
Well, let's just put some more cool ingredients in.
That's tomato, chopped up fresh.
Now, was that regular tomato or a plum tomato, like a Roma?
That was a regular tomato.
All right.
But I suppose we could use any kind of tomato. Okay, great.
Okay.
Red onions. We could have used yellow onions. Okay, now it looks nice and cool.
This is better. And you see, unlike those fussier cooking shows, this looks just like your kitchen at home. Splatters all over the place.
We have some oregano.
All right.
And then we have our green beans. We have frozen Italian-style green beans here.
Here, let's
okay.
Shoosh those in. Since we're cooking on a budget, we don't want to waste a single bean.
Definitely. We use frozen green beans. We bought a big economy-size bag, and then we just pulled out what we needed for this recipe. Now, you ask about the tomatoes. Were we using Roma or were we using regular tomatoes? We were just using regular tomatoes, but we could have used whatever was on sale. We could have used canned tomatoes if we wanted, but we probably want to drain off the liquids.
That's true. And actually, since we're talking about stretching your food budget, it's kind of important to know that many of the ingredients that we've used here this morning will stay fresh for quite a while in your vegetable crisper. So normally I watch the sales, and particularly things like Roma tomatoes or green peppers or celery will last 2 or 3 weeks. They'll still be nice and fresh in your vegetable crisper. So it's a good thing to buy enough for a couple of weeks at a time. Don't just pull out the recipe and say, oh, I need these things, and then go to the store and pay $3 a pound for green peppers when you can buy them on sale for $99.
Yes. I've had where they're on sale, buying of the green peppers and chopping them up ahead of time and then freezing them in little bags in the freezer.
They do very well.
You can also take tomatoes in the summer when you're making your own tomato, growing your own tomatoes, and all of a sudden you have 20 tomatoes in 1 week. You can take those tomatoes and freeze them whole, and then you can use them for other recipes later on in the year.
One of the things I like about a recipe like this also is that you can really do many different variations. If you wanted to throw some water chestnuts in there, you could. You could throw a little dash of balsamic vinegar, and unless you're on an extreme low-fat diet, you might want to drizzle a little bit of cold-pressed olive oil. And I know we're cooking on a budget, and yet when you're only using like a teaspoon at a time of olive oil just for flavoring, you can really stretch that a long way also.
Oh, and a teaspoon of olive oil is 5 grams of fat, and this is going to serve 4 people.
Right.
So we're talking 1.5 grams of fat, which would work on a heart healthy diet.
Right.
Well, we are also, with a heart healthy diet, we're trying to watch our fat, cholesterol, and salt. So we used fresh tomatoes, we used frozen green beans, which will have less salt than canned green beans or canned tomatoes. So if you're going to use canned tomatoes, try to use low sodium green tomatoes.
Right. One other tip you might want to consider is that frequently prepackaged spices are far more expensive than if you go to an outlet that sells spices in bulk. Also, your spices will be fresher if you just go buy a small packet at a time. Oregano, for example. If you do quite a bit of Italian-type cooking, you'll probably want to buy some fresh oregano maybe once a month. So just go buy a small packet at a bulk store, and you'll pay far less than in the little plastic jar. You end up paying about $3 for the plastic jar, which is kind of silly. So bulk spices really work very well.
Fresh spices would work
Exactly,
also.
and fresh spices.
If you have a nice window, you can put and have some.
You betcha.
growing
Or a
your
nice
spice.
herb garden
Garden.
outside your kitchen door like I had this past summer, and I'm still using basil that I froze
Okay, good.
and made big batches of pesto. So it's very cheap to grow your own herbs.
Well, so how you grew your own basil,
Yes.
and then you harvested the basil, and then what did you do?
Well, and the nice thing about basil is that I harvested it actually 3 times during the growing season. Cut it off at the ground, it just keeps coming back up. And then a real simple pesto recipe is just almost equal parts of fresh basil, olive oil. I don't use pine nuts because they're $18 a pound. I use walnuts instead. And then Parmesan cheese. Put them in a food processor. And garlic, several cloves of fresh garlic. It's very inexpensive to make your own pesto that way also. And you can buy a little container about this size of pesto for about $6 or $7 in the store. You can make it for about $1 or $2 yourself.
Yes, a lot. It tastes much better when
This
you
is
make it yourself.
this is looking mighty tasty, and it is smelling very nice too.
Now, what we have here is our ingredients. We have to bring it to a boil, which we have a little bit of a boil going, and now we're supposed to simmer it for about 7 to 9 minutes. We don't want to overcook it. Sometimes you've seen that the green beans kind of turn a
Kind of mushy.
olive drab. So we want to keep that pretty color.
Right.
We're going to garnish the green beans with something. For this recipe calls for lemons, but we could also use oranges. We could use extra tomato. We could put about anything to garnish.
Something for a little color contrast is really what you're looking for
Yeah.
with a garnish. And actually, you might even want to take one of those lemon wedges and just squeeze a little lemon juice on the dish beforehand so that the garnish then makes sense. That would be very good.
Nice flavoring.
Very
So we
nice.
could really do things.
Right. I think this is about done actually. It looks very good.
Looks good. Well, we're going to take a little break, and when we come back, we're going to finish the green beans, and we're going to start our casserole. Welcome back. We're going to now dish up our green beans oregano, and then we're going to start our casserole.
Okay, now
Here we
let me
go.
see if I can do this without getting it all over the countertop.
That is pretty.
It turned out really nice. It smells great too. I know that doesn't help the
audience,
TV audience
yes.
very much, but
Show that pan. Look at how clean that is without using any oil.
no oil, no spray.
A lot of people would go, well, you're going to saute those green beans without any oil, you're going to have a mess in the pan. That's not bad.
No.
What could we have done to this? We could have modified this pretty easily. We might have used, you talked about the vinegar. We might have put chicken broth, the low-fat chicken broth in there.
done
We could
that.
add some little bit of flavor. Since we're having a chicken casserole, that might have been a nice blend with the casserole.
Absolutely, and just by changing the spices, you could alter this dish. Leave the oregano out and put some soy sauce in if you wanted it like more Asian flavor. There's any number of things. Tarragon would work, exactly.
So-
Any number of modifications would change this greatly.
We'll garnish this with a little bit of lemon.
Right.
This is supposed to serve 4 people. This is a very generous portions for 4 people. So a fourth of this would be about 27 calories, no fat. Real nice side dish.
Very nice.
Let's start off with
Okay.
our chicken casserole.
Set this aside.
What we have here, we have a chicken breast.
All right.
And when we're working on a budget, there's many ways you can make your dollar spread a little bit with chicken. We could have bought the whole chicken and taken it apart, using the wings later, using the using the legs later. Right now we got the chicken breast here. We could take the skin off, and if you buy a chicken breast with skin, it's a little cheaper per pound. Also with the bones, we could have taken the bones off.
And again, if you plan ahead, rather than just spur of the moment, oh, I'm going to run to the store and buy chicken breasts, which are often as much as $4 or $4.50 a pound for the boneless, skinless breast. If you watch the sales, usually about every 3 or 4 weeks, one of the major chains will have boneless, skinless breasts on sale for $1.79 a pound. I always buy a couple of great big packages and then repackage them in Ziploc freezer bags. Now, do you want me to just cut this in half, or do you want me to cut it into small pieces?
Well, let's cut it in half first.
All right.
Now, we're going to be serving 4 people, so we wouldn't want to leave it half and half because you don't want to have to cut the thing apart. So we can go half that way.
All right.
Or we could do cubes.
We could do cubes, but I actually think the pieces look larger if you split it lengthwise like this than crosswise. As you probably know from Asian cuisine, that's one trick to cut down on the amount of meat, is to simply dice things quite small. And meat is added to some dishes more for flavor. And then, if you really had real hearty meat eaters, you might want to give each person a half a breast rather than a fourth. But again, it depends on what else you're serving with the meal, because this is plenty of protein, along with the rice and other things that we're serving.
Definitely. This is probably 2 ounces of chicken breast right there.
Right.
And when we're watching a low-fat, low-cholesterol diet, one of the tips is to have low-fat meat, which the skinless chicken breast is,
Right.
and we want to choose smaller portions. That way we're getting less cholesterol.
Right.
In a casserole dish, what we're going to do is add water.
Okay.
Okay.
And that was about 1 3/4 cups?
About 1.5 cups.
About 1.5 cups.
We will have the recipe is on the website.
All right.
And we have some rice. This is a blend of white rice and wild rice.
Wild rice.
It's about 5 ounces. And you don't have to you could buy white rice and brown rice and make your own blend up. Rice is very cheap if you buy a 5-pound bag.
Right, exactly.
And then what we have is some frozen peas. And this is about 1/2 of a package. And we have some oregano.
Okay, those peas tend to freeze when you put them in the water. I'm
Yes.
just separating them a little bit there, okay?
There we go.
All right.
And we have, depending on what you want, you could put white wine in here. We're just going to put regular water, another 1/4 of a cup. We could have added it all with the regular water, but I want to let you know this last 1/4 of a cup could be white wine.
Okay.
We're just going to use regular water. And then
Okay.
we place the chicken breast on top. This would be baking in a 350-degree oven for about an hour. We cover it up and just cook it away. Very simple. How long did it take us to put this together?
Again, very simple. And also, you could really make easy variations to this as well. It might give it a little nice color to put some paprika on the chicken breasts, or you could sprinkle a little bit of grated Parmesan cheese on the top before you bake it as well.
I like the paprika idea. That's pretty.
It gives it a nice, warm, golden kind of a color that way.
And this is very inexpensive. It gives us a nice flavor. Now, let's talk a little bit about when we're shopping. When you go grocery shopping, well, what things are you thinking about when you're trying to save your dollar?
Well, like I've referred to before, I tend to stock up. There are certain things that I use consistently, so I'll buy pretty good quantities of those when they're on sale. For example, I just bought 3 packages of salmon fillets yesterday from my freezer because they were on sale. And we like salmon in my house, so it's something that I use. So watch the sales, clip coupons, you can save a lot that way. Almost all of the stores anymore have those kind of saver cards where frequently I'll save as much as $15 or $20 in a shopping trip using one of those. So there are all kinds of little hints. And buying bulk. Again, the wild rice tends to be a little more expensive than white rice, but you can buy that at some of the local bulk retailers as well and spend less money than a prepackaged type.
Great.
Yes.
Some great tips. When we return after our break, we are going to be sampling some of these foods, and we'll continue to talk about how we can spread that food dollar.
I'll sample and you talk. How is that?
I want to sample too.
Thanks.
So, great.
Recipes from today's show can be found on the American Heart Association website. Click on your local AHA and look for Recipes from the Heart.
welcome back. And Greg, I want to thank you for being on our show.
It's been great.
And giving us all these great tips and helping out cooking.
And now comes the payoff.
Yes, let's try some of this.
All right.
Here's our casserole.
Now, I think I'm going to set this breast aside so that I can dig underneath a little bit, put some of the foundation down, and then put the breast on top. Otherwise, I would have made a real mess. Okay.
The nutritional information on this recipe, the fourth of this casserole is just under 300 calories. I think it's like 292. And we have also that 20-some calorie green beans. You're talking a pretty light, healthy meal.
I was just thinking also, again, this is another dish which you could vary.
Mushrooms would be nice.
Mushrooms would be very nice, especially if you had company coming over, or if someone in your family didn't care for peas. I was thinking that corn, or even that Mexicorn that has little red peppers in it, would be real pretty also.
And we could change that water with other ingredients. We could have put the chicken stock in there.
That would have worked very well.
We could have put in some more Italian seasonings in there. It would have been real nice. Let me dish up some green beans.
Okay. And actually, with these two dishes, you really have a complete meal. You may want to top it off with some bread, for example, or rolls, something like that, and still have a really low-calorie budget meal. We were going to talk a little bit more also about this idea of shopping on a budget. And one thing that many experts will tell you is go to the shop. Go shopping with a list. Don't go to the store and just wander the aisles. Actually, they've kind of proven by research that the more time people spend in the store, the more they'll buy. Obviously,
more dollars.
Right. And don't go to the store hungry. That's another tip.
True. But I think you have to remember, you have your list. Use that as a foundation. But do allow yourself some flexibility. If you find all of a sudden that the pork is on sale, take advantage of that being on sale. So come in with an idea, but then you can take modifications on that.
Absolutely.
But be careful with those add-ons. Like all of a sudden you notice that the chips are on sale and you didn't really want them in the first place, but you were hungry, so you had some anyways.
Right.
So be careful there. Also, a lot of the grocery stores will have on the shelf unit pricing, which will tell you how much it costs per ounce, which is real nice instead of having to sit there with a calculator.
And surprisingly, sometimes the larger sizes are actually more per ounce than the smaller. You can watch that and save some money. It's very surprising, but that's often true.
Yes. And also, you have to take advantage of different types of brands. There's always the national brand, there's store brand products, and there's also generic products. Depending on the recipe you're using, you might not need, let's say for example tuna, you might not need to have chunk tuna if you're making a tuna casserole or a tuna casserole where it's going to be broken apart.
Right.
Want to try?
Oh, absolutely.
Let's see.
Well, another famous chef says bon appetit, so we'll say buen provecho instead. How's that? Well, very tasty. Now,
besides being budget conscious, this is very time. You have a time budget also. This was very simple.
This didn't take any more time than simply opening a prepackaged dish, really.
And putting it in the microwave. I guess we could have done some of this in the microwave also.
Absolutely.
Very good. Very, very good.
One other thing that can save you a little time is that rice, being the versatile ingredient that it is, you can make your rice up ahead of time, which I frequently do. If I'm cooking a specific dish, I'll make maybe double the amount that I need, and then I'll have some rice made that I can add to soup, or that I can make rice pudding, or something like that. It keeps very well in the refrigerator for several days in a covered container.
Very good.
So that's a time saver, not necessarily a money saver, but a time saver. And time is money, and we're all busy nowadays.
Now pasta, you can do a little bit of that, but pasta tends to stick a little bit more than rice. I haven't had much luck saving pasta, have you?
Pasta saves very well if you just drizzle a little oil on it after you drain it, and toss it with a little olive oil, then it'll stay very nicely in a container
And
in the
that's nice for
refrigerator.
lunches to bring to work.
Absolutely.
And you can
Absolutely.
spread it at the dollar there, so you don't have to use
Well,
up your money on lunches.
Absolutely. That's how I save money every day. I bring my lunches. I always make enough for supper the night before that I can bring a container to school the next day.
So shopping on a budget does not have to be plain bland. You can make very good meals, very nutritious meals, heart healthy, and still have
And
a very
tasty.
meal.
Exactly.
Thanks again for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.